Okay, Tigers, I'm back. 20 minutes just isn't enough value to deliver. And as I look through this, I'm realizing that the reason that it was weirdly off is because I neglected to plug this next one in, which this is going to be all screwy because what I was supposed to do was talk about Jack Kelly and then go straight to photography and then deal with the other issue that we talked about, blanking, a signaling theory on Wednesday, which would have been good because it's the kind of thing that I'd like to be able to do in person. But anyway, so this may run a little bit long, but we'll make up the balance on Friday. Yeah. Okay. So bringing this back up here, we're going to talk about photography and visual deception. And here we go. So, photography was still a very new art in the mid 1800s when it was first pressed into the service of bullshit. Because it turns out that photography has a very special characteristic. It comes with this implied warranty of truthfulness. And yet, right from the start, it's been possible to use it in various ways to tell lies. In other words, if you knew what you were doing, you could use photography to put a stamp of truth on something that you had cooked up. Um, or you could put another stamp of truth on. I guess, two stamps of truth is a stamp of never mind. So, I want to talk about what photography aspires to. And as it's usually practiced, it comes with this implied warranty that I just named for no particular reason the pact. And the pact says this is a thing that is what it looks like, right? This is an image taken from life. The scene it shows and the story it tells are true, or at the very least, no effort has been made to make them deceptive. Basically, unless you've created something as a photo illustration, it claims to be a picture from life. That implied truth claim is the essence of the pact. And you will sometimes hear Photoshop swindlers say, well, I never said the photo of my political opponent picking up that hooker was real. You just assumed that. But no. That's not how that works. The pact is the essence of a photograph. Photos are assumed to be truth claims unless truth is disclaimed. Do you remember, have you ever seen, this is a long time ago now, but I think it was the 2004, no, it was the 2008 election. John McCain was the candidate, and he was running against Barack Obama. And there was a photograph of McCain walking off stage with his tongue sticking. He was going something like this. And he looked like he was right behind Obama, getting ready to grab his butt. And this actually was taken with a telephoto camera lens from way across the thing, so it made it the two of them looked like they were very similar size and very close to each other. They were actually like 20 feet apart. This was a photograph that made a truth claim without any effort. No effort had been made to make that photograph deceptive, but it was still deceptive just the same. So professional photographers tend to be very sensitive about this sort of thing, especially when somebody actually cheats. This is why photographers get fired when they get caught doctoring photos, is because they're violating this pact. Part of the reason the pact is still a thing is that until very recently it was pretty difficult to alter a photo. Early in the game, the only way to do it was to create an illusion and photograph the illusion. A good example might be the Fiji mermaid, which P.T. Barnum bought from a devious guy who built it out of a salmon and a chimpanzee as a taxidermy project. When he had it photographed, of course, it was done from the precise angle that would maximize that illusion. In other words, photography allowed Barnum to control how much information about the Fiji mermaid you got. The mermaid's reality included monkey fur and fish scales and taxidermy stitches, and if somebody handed it to you, you'd quickly discover all three of these. But by arranging it just so and taking a picture, Barnum could preserve only the scales and the fur, and when looking at the picture, you'd have no way of knowing that part of the mermaid's reality had been artfully abstracted. So was the photo a fake? Nope. 100% real, showing you exactly and truthfully what it saw, but the story it told was a fake. Kind of like that photo. I'll have to dig one up so that you can see what I'm talking about, of John McCain not grabbing Barack Obama's butt. Did the photo before falsely this is a different Fiji mermaid project. A bunch of people started making these things, apparently, which has kind of been rough on the monkeys. But anyway, did the photos falsely certify the story was true simply by being a photograph in an era of pictures don't lie? Yes, that's it exactly. And people believed it because of the pact. Photography, both still and motion photography, carried that implicit stamp of authenticity for 150 years, which is a stunning accomplishment considering that darkroom wizards were screwing around with it well before the turn of the century, the 20th century, not the 21st. There basically are three ways to lie with a photograph. Only one of them is new, and I would argue it's the least subtle one. The others have been practiced since the 1890s, and even before. The oldest way is to set up a fake scene. So you set up a real, honest, true picture of a fake staged devious scene. The camera's not lying, but the subject being photographed is. The Fiji mermaid is one of these. This guy in a gorilla suit is one of these, trying to be Bigfoot. A more modern example might be a photograph of a car on Craigslist that looks fabulous, but when you show up to look at it, you realize the seller has carefully avoided taking the picture from the side of the car that someone keyed. Or maybe when you turn on the defroster, chunks of silt start blowing out in your face and you realize it's been flooded. Come to think of it, just about anything on Craigslist is probably like this. It's a wild west out there. And it's this form of deception that most often gets news photographers in trouble, where they stage a shot and present it as real. Now hold this doorknob for a second and just pretend that you just heard the news that you'd won the election. That's what this looks like. Of course, there are a lot of news photos that are staged, from ribbon cuttings to environmental portraits. But the difference is that these are honest pictures, but they're honest about what they are. They don't violate the pact. A staged photo that pretends to be a candid photo violates the pact. And by the way, the former director of student media, when I first got here, she had just been hired, Julia Sandage. She had a great story about this from her days as a major metro market TV reporter. She and her videographer were doing a story on homeless teens, and the photog shot a video of the teens climbing into an abandoned building through a window, then cut to a matching shot of them emerging from the same window into the room. And when the manager saw that, he went ballistic because he knew what that meant. It meant that he had taken the shot the first time and then staged the second time. Like, okay, go back outside and I'm going to film you coming in, pretending that this is just you first getting in. But that's not what the footage claimed to be. It claimed to be documentation of what happened naturally, not a staged for drama reenactment. It's a subtle difference, but a violation of the pact. If he'd been a new guy, that photog would have been fired. As it was, he was written up. This kind of visual bullshitting is still pretty common today. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this or not, but it's just like music. Actually, you can probably hear that little tube well. Turn it down a bit. You could make the case that all of these are depictions of the platonic ideal of a cheeseburger rather than, of an actual, this is what a cheeseburger looks like. That they're aspirational rather than documentary, but still, they don't represent what you can expect when you order a Big Mac. So there's that kind of deception, right? Documenting a physical hoax. Let's move on to the second kind, and we'll meet our poster child, Joseph Stalin. The second oldest form of deception is direct action in the darkroom. Stalin in the 1930s became notorious for practicing this particular form of deception. Looking at the work that he did or that someone did for him with modern eyes, it's easy to be shocked by how crude it was, but the digital age has made us all a lot more sophisticated about this sort of thing. This is one of the most famous photographs. This is Lenin and Stalin together on a bench, or is it? This photograph helped Stalin acquire power after the death of Lenin by making it look like the two of them were buds. He brought two images together using crude cut-and-paste technology in the darkroom so it would look like something had happened when it never did. And the shadows on the faces are falling in different directions, and the lighting is obviously different. But nobody's eye was tuned to that sort of thing at the time. As a deception, this was fabulously successful. The peacock's tail had started to change, but people weren't figuring it out yet. The peahens were still using that signal to judge the studliness of the peacock or the honesty of the potential dictator. Later in his career, as the history's third worst dictator ever, Stalin's MO shifted. Taking people out of pictures was going to be his thing, rather than putting people in. Stalin would have a picture taken of himself with one of his buds, and a few years later he'd decide he didn't like the guy anymore, and there'd be a fake trial and a real gunshot, and he'd have two things to get rid of: a body, which was never a problem for Stalin, and an image. So you get this extraordinary array of official doctored photographs that were doctored to remove people that Stalin didn't like. It's just like, now you see him, now you don't. Some of these later in Stalin's career were relatively sophisticated. Check out Funny Hat Guy here, who I'm pretty sure is Leon Trotsky. Famously, he's got the hat kind of in the middle there. Well, you'll see him when he disappears. The image is pretty bad, you can't be sure. But now you see him, and now you definitely don't. And some of his friends have disappeared, too. We've got... But there's a smoking hole there where Leon Trotsky was. There are a ton of these. You can look them up if you look for the disappearing photograph Stalin. Lots and lots. Well, a more recent example of this kind of thing is this picture. It's quite famous. It's a picture of a woman at Kent State University, a college woman, reacting in shock and horror to the fact that a classmate has just been essentially murdered before her eyes. A photographer took a picture of the scene. This is the Kent State shooting, right? The National Guard, the student protesters weren't moving quick enough, so they went ahead and plugged a bunch of them, and 4 of them died. This is a photograph. This woman just happened to be in a position with a fence post behind her so that it looked like it was sticking out of her head. So someone in the darkroom, with far less subtlety than Stalin had once used, removed the fence post. You can see it pretty clearly in the picture here. There it is, and there it's not. This caused a substantial amount of controversy. News photographers live and die by the faith people put in the pact, in the images they make. People understand that it's easier to move from little lies to big lies, easier than it is to move from no lies to some lies. And they assume that someone who will deceive them a little will, if they think they can get away with it, deceive them a lot. Darkroom deception's pretty much dead today. It's been rendered obsolete by the third method of lying with pictures, so let's talk about that now. The third method, and the one that has the actual potential to fully decouple reality from its 150-year-old certificate of truthiness, is direct digital manipulation. The tools of Photoshop are well enough known, and you've probably used them for fun, so you're surely pretty familiar with their use in propagating bullshit. And in fact, you can find in many graphic design programs, you can actually find classes that are specifically devoted to delving into the code of an image to see whether it's been manipulated or not. Even the most skillful Photoshop artist leaves some discernible patterns and traces, but that's beyond the pedigree of this class. It's a technical inquiry, whereas we're going to be applying a more sociological approach to figuring out whether we should distrust an image. I will say, though, if you know how the clone stamp tool works, you will know exactly what to look for if someone has done one of those Stalin removal things. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, I won't be able to explain it to you, but get on Photoshop and take the clone stamp tool and play with it a little bit and just look for the patterns that it will create, and they will stick out. They really will. Well, the first thing you want to do before you even start tackling an image like this is to remember that photographs, they're designed to tell stories. You know the old saw that a picture is worth 1,000 words? This is just one of the many ways that it's at least true in spirit, right? So you've got a picture here that is supposed to show the misery of a bunch of people who've been flooded out, and so what's the story they're trying to tell? That's where you're going to look for the augmentation. Pay attention to the story, the whole story, not just the part that's most obvious. I'm not sure actually why I used this one because, I mean, it's like, well, I don't know. Maybe the idea is it's a French expressway, and the story is supposed to be look how bad traffic is, and their only picture of traffic apparently had not enough cars on it. So, there we go. But here's another image that I could show you guys. This is obvious. This is a meme, right? This is obviously just for fun. But let's unpack the clues that would lead us to the conclusion that it's bullshit. And it can't be bullshit if it doesn't really make a truth claim. And it's arguable that this doesn't really make a truth claim. It's just a visual joke. But let's pretend it's making a truth claim. It's saying, "Oh, look what happened." First of all, there's the simple mechanical fact that although the motion blur of the background suggests that everything's moving pretty fast, the lug nuts on the car are perfectly distinct, which clearly shows it was photographed while standing still. It was also clearly added to the image later, and the scale's all wrong. I mean, Alfa Romeos aren't the same size as trucks like that. So, in this little sports car with a longer wheelbase than the truck it's following. Finally, what would actually happen if the toilet did get knocked off the back of that truck? Death or serious injury rather than a sewer bath. So the story it's trying to tell is incongruent. It's kind of like that the voicemail with the guy, the little old ladies are beating up the guy. Ha ha ha, this is so much fun. Where the if it were real, people would be reacting to it differently. But yeah, it is just a joke. So anyway, all wisecracking aside, there is a deeper and more serious problem about fake photos. They're just so easy to do. And a skillful words fraud specialist will still leave the highway strewn with clues, but faking a story, faking a good Photoshopper can cover most of the bases. Even that clone stamp thing. This is an image that, and I've shared this one with you before. Brian Walser formerly of the Los Angeles Times sent this back from Iraq. What's the story it tells? There's a fearful Iraqi man holding a small child being sternly gestured at and apparently yelled at by a British soldier whose weapon is at the ready. What's the British soldier saying to the man? Is he telling him to get down? He's not even talking to him. Because that image was made from two other images, and the scene never happened. And the only reason this deception was caught was the photo editor at the LA Times noticed the same person was in the picture twice. Other than that chance observation, there would have been no way of knowing this picture was a cheater, and it probably would have won a Pulitzer because, of course, Brian's fake image would have been competing against the work of photographers who played by the rules. And who could compete with this? News photogs are acutely aware of this, and they recognize that Photoshop fakery has the potential to destroy the credibility of news photography, which is why they take this so seriously. This is why one of my photographers at a newspaper I edited in Cottage Grove a decade ago at the dawn of the Photoshop era once came abjectly and shamefacedly into my office and apologized to me for having removed a distracting tree from the background in an advertising photo for the local Arby's. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about, Rebecca May? I mean, it's an ad photo. She's like, I really shouldn't be doing that. I'm like, come back and bother me when you Photoshop the dead person out of the car crash. So that, yeah, anyway. Yeah, so it's also why they made such a big fuss about the fence post that someone painstakingly removed from the picture of the shootings at Kent State University. And unfortunately, they're absolutely right. My advice is just to never accept photographic evidence as definitive proof of anything. But you know that already. And it's funny, because the trust that a well-done Photoshop fake commands among students in this class has declined palpably in the last 5 years. And as you know, at best, it can only point to truth. It lost its power to certify authenticity a long time ago. But then when you think about it, a person can write something that's a lie, and a person can create a Photoshop image that's a lie if they have the skills. It all comes back to who the person is, whether they're a liar or not. know who's talking. We've got we've gone from an era of pics or it didn't happen to pics and it didn't happen. And as a side note, that's so Dan Faltisek. This was this photograph was released, and a whole bunch of people were like, "There's no way, man." And of course not. This is an airline pilot. He knows very well that you can't do that. He just got some nice stiff wind and got out there with a selfie stick and took a picture of himself and then photoshopped the sky in behind it. He was probably as surprised as anybody else when all of a sudden a bunch of people were calling him a liar, and he's like, "No, I'm just being funny," and I can relate because this was mine. So there was this one. There was a story about apparently a pink fracking drill that you're supposed to, for fracking oil. They made a pink drill bit for breast cancer awareness, and there was a bucket of chicken from Kentucky Fried Chicken that was pink, and I was like, what's next? So I got on Photoshop, and with a little, replace color action, I took a pack of Marlboro Blacks and turned it into Marlboro Pinks. And then I posted it without comment on Facebook and went and did something else. And by the time I'd come back, several of my friends had bitten. And then I was like, oh shit, do I tell them? And they're going to feel stupid. I told them. But you have to be careful with this stuff. Anyway, that's the end of that. That's our discussion of photography and its provenance, or not provenance, but its tradition of being used for bullshit. Again, know who's talking. It's really what it boils down to. It's just another way to communicate. Everybody knows how to write now. Everybody knows how to make a meme now. Whoever it is that's doing it is either a liar or they're not, and that's what you need to know. Okay, that'll do it for me. So I'll see you guys on Wednesday, and we're going to talk about video, including those new deep face things that everybody is, all of the usual suspects are running around, when in danger or in doubt, run in circles, scream and shout and yell that this is the end of the world as we know it. We're never going to be able to trust a video again. Blah, blah, blah. We've been there before. Anyway, we'll talk about all that on Wednesday. Have a wonderful rest of the day. And it's a little early here. Oh, this is the thing. Oh, yeah. Okay, but I'm going to have to start this off next time because this is a list of 29 viral videos and GIFs from 2017 that were totally fake. It was pretty interesting. I wonder if they've done one from 2018 yet. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go back here and click the stop recording button. Okay, bye, guys. Oh, just in time, too.